number 2. Okay, this is foundation number 2. This is gonna blow your mind. Whenever I explain this to people, they're like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. So before we can even talk about launches and funnels and webinars and all the fun stuff that you're gonna learn about in the next few days, before we can even go there, you have to understand that there are 2 different types of course customers that will buy your online course. Okay, there's 2 types of customers. And you, as the course creator running this business, you need to understand the psychology, the buying habits of both of these types of people in order to build effective sales systems in your course business. Okay? Okay. So you need to know what these 2 types of customers are so that you can sell to both of them, okay? Now, I like to keep this really simple. You've probably heard of different ideas about, there's different types of customers, and some people will buy based on emotion, and some people buy based on logic, and some people will, read the whole sales page, and some people will just like glance at it and purchase. And you've probably heard that there's all these different, buyer psychology things, right? Well, I like to keep it so simple. And we have found that this is like the magic thing to understand. And I like to use a metaphor that we are all familiar with, right? The turtles and the hares. Now, I know that technically it's a tortoise, but we need to use turtles. You'll see in a minute. It'll all make sense. So turtles and hares. I like to use this metaphor because we're all familiar with it. We can easily associate like one is slow and one is fast, right? And although there is absolutely a broad spectrum, even amongst the turtles and the hares, these 2 different types of customers, there's a spectrum, right? Like there can be very fast turtles, there can be slower hares. Don't get too worried about that. We're just gonna keep it super simple. So I'm gonna describe what the difference is between these 2 customers, and I'm sure you can kind of guess where we're going with this, right? But we need to make sure that we're building a course business that takes into account the fact that there are 2 different types of customers with 2 completely different buyer habits. They are 2 completely different types of customers. They have different psychology, different buying habits. Now, a turtle, as you can imagine, they are pretty slow to make decisions. A turtle needs to, might need weeks or months to make a decision to buy something, and a lot of people, when I go through this, they also are like, oh, I can see now I'm a turtle, or they can identify as like, I'm a hare. So a turtle takes a long time to make a decision. They need to see the offer a few times. If you've ever heard that like, old marketing phrase that's like, oh, someone needs to see a product 7 times before they buy it, that's a turtle. So they need to see your offer multiple times before they purchase, and they need more of a nudge. And by a nudge, I mean, they need more social proof, and they might even need a little bit of, FOMO is too strong of a word, but they need a little bit of like social pressure, or they just need social proof. They need to see that other people are taking action. They need to see that other turtles are encouraging them that it's a good decision. So that's the turtles. They take a long time to make a buying decision. They're just slower. And I will just say this, guys, between a turtle and a hare, like one is not better than the other. They're both amazing. We love both of them. We want to serve turtles and hares in our business. So we're going to design a business that can serve both, but one is not better than the other, but they're just different. Okay. So we just need to understand the 2 different types. So a hare wants to move fast. They are fast action takers. They are always in a rush. They're literally looking at their watch being like, I already waited too long. I need a course to buy about this right now. I can't believe I'm already weeks behind. I need a course today. I am looking to buy something to fix my problem. They make decisions very quickly. They are always in a rush. They are already late. And they're like moving fast, and they will not slow down. Okay. They will not wait for you to be ready to sell to them. They are looking to purchase something. They are out there on the hunt, looking to buy something. They make decisions quickly. They take action quickly. They move fast, and they're just ready to go. Okay. Very different from the turtles. Again, one is not better than the other. They're just different. And we need to make sure that we design our course business to account for these 2 different types of customers and to be able to convert and attract both of these different types of people, right? So If you don't have all the pieces of the model that I'm about to show you in point number 3, then you're basically telling an entire group of potential customers, right? Either the turtles or the hares. You're just telling them, I'm not interested in serving you. I don't have anything for you to buy, right? Which is why we need to have all the pieces of what I'm about to show you. And you don't want to miss out on half or more of your customers, okay? So that's why we need to implement the 3-part framework for converting those different types of customers consistently. Now, there's 3 parts in our course model, and this is the reason why you're going to learn about all these different parts in detail over the next few days, right? You're going to learn about evergreen funnels, you're going to learn about launching, you're going to learn about everything. So the first part is evergreen funnels. Now, if you are not familiar with what I'm talking about when I say an evergreen funnel, in its simplest terms, it basically means that when someone new finds your website and they opt in for one of your freebies, like someone is brand new to you, they just found you and they opt in for one of your freebies, because they're new to your audience, they're given a chance to enroll in your course immediately for 5 days after they opt in for your email list, okay? So basically an evergreen funnel in its simplest form is like people have 5 days to buy your course and they just opted in for your email list. Now, the second part of this framework and this model is live launches. So you guys are probably familiar with live launches. It's this concept of opening enrollment publicly to your course a couple of times a year, and then you close enrollment. And webinars are the third part. So altogether, you have these 3 pieces. You have evergreen funnels, you have launches, and you have webinars, which are just sort of a small 3-day promotion where you do a live webinar and offer your course for sale. So let's talk about how these things actually fit together. So an evergreen funnel is the part of your business that is responsible for daily revenue coming in year-round on autopilot. It is the system in your business that gives you consistency. It means that sales are coming in every single day through automation. You are not out there hustling for those sales. It is all happening through automation. And it is the ultimate goal of every course creator is to build that evergreen funnel that can bring in sales on autopilot year round every single day so that you have consistency and stability in your business, right? Now, if you haven't guessed already, the evergreen funnel is where the hares are going to buy. This is where the majority of the hares that find your website, they find your opt-in, they find your email list, or they find your offer, this is where the hares are going to buy. Because in an evergreen funnel, like I said, they are given a chance to purchase your product immediately, and they have 5 days to buy it. So this is where the hares are going to buy because they are ready to make a fast decision. But here's the other thing about the evergreen funnel. There's also going to be a bunch of turtles who go through your evergreen funnel and they don't buy, okay? So they're imagine that you have a bunch of turtles that go through your funnel and they go through your email sequence, they watch your evergreen webinar, and they go through your whole funnel, but they don't buy. But what happens is that they actually have been warmed up. So they are a very warm lead who has been warmed up to purchase during your next live launch. So think about how powerful a system is. Think about how powerful an evergreen funnel is, that even when it doesn't technically do its job because it's not converting the turtles, it's only converting the hares. So even if half the people who go through the funnel don't buy during that funnel, they still are an asset because the funnel has still done its job by warming them up to get them ready to buy during your next live launch. Does that make sense? This is like really, really important to understand because you're seeing that an evergreen funnel, whether it's going to convert the hares into sales, and that's amazing. But even if it doesn't convert the turtles, it's still doing its job by warming them up and putting them into what I call the warm turtle pond, which is like, I know it sounds silly, but I have to think of everything in metaphors or else I'll just forget. So the turtle pond is where the turtles go when, they've been through your evergreen funnel and then 6 months later, they see a live launch. So this is where the live launches come in, right? So let's say that a turtle went through your evergreen funnel 6 months earlier and they didn't buy because they're a turtle, right? They didn't buy. Well, now they've been warmed up by going through your evergreen funnel and by being on your email list for 6 months. Now they're going to buy during your next live launch. Okay. So the live launches are really important because they are a way for you to create cash injections throughout the year in your business. And they're also a way for you to re-engage those funnel leads who did not buy the first time they went through your evergreen funnel. Okay. Now, most people design their business backwards, right? And they think that the live launches are the key and that they're the main part of everything. But in our model, the live launch is actually, its purpose is to re-engage, recapture, and convert those warmed up funnel leads, those turtles who didn't buy in the evergreen funnel. Now, you're also going to have hares that buy during your live launches, right? Because hares will find you during your live launches. They'll come in. They'll be finding you through the hype of your launch. They're going to buy too. But the real purpose of it is to reconvert all the people who went through the evergreen funnel but didn't buy during the funnel. So this is their next chance. The biggest mistake that people make is they think, oh, well, the turtles who didn't buy in my funnel are just not buyers. They're just not going to buy ever. That is a huge mistake, and that can cause you to lose out on half of your potential sales or more because you're not giving them another chance. So either your live launch is a second chance for people to buy who did not choose to buy during your evergreen funnel, and it works like magic. And then we have webinars is the third part of this framework. So webinars are the heart of your funnel and the heart of your live launches. So you'll probably see how like an evergreen webinar funnel, we want to try to get people to watch the webinar, right? And the same in a live launch. If you're using webinars in your live launches, you definitely want to have webinars be really the core and the heart of your live launches, that you're driving people to your webinars during your live launch, right? But the other fun thing about webinars is that it's a way for you to create revenue on demand whenever you want. So once you know how to do webinars, you can do one any day of the week and you can bring in sales of your course, which is awesome. So webinars are really the foundation of converting someone from a I'm kind of interested in you, what do you do again, to making them a raving fan and customer, right? So the cool thing about webinars, one of the best things that I think people underestimate, is that it can become your signature piece of free content. Now, let's imagine that you have a podcast or a blog or YouTube channel. Now, you can't really imagine a world where you just have a podcast and you just have one podcast episode. Like you just have one single podcast episode and it's your signature podcast and that's the only episode that people listen to. Or the same thing with a blog or a YouTube channel. You don't just have one blog post or one signature, YouTube video. Like that's not how it works, right? That would be very strange. It doesn't work that way. But with a webinar, you can just have one signature free piece of content, and then you don't have to do all those other things. Because what happens now is people say, oh yeah, well, I have this blog post over here where I tell my story, and then I have this YouTube video where I connect with people, and then I have this podcast where I do some teaching content, and then I have this other part where I actually sell something, and it's all over the place. But what a webinar does is takes all those pieces. It's like telling your story, connecting with people on a deeper level, giving them a taste of your teaching style, and selling your programs and all those things. It distills all of that into one 90-minute presentation. And I don't know anything else that could do that, right? Rather than having it spread across all these different pieces of content. So it really becomes your one signature free piece of content. That's why I call it the Swiss Army knife of business, because it really does like if someone never saw a single one of your videos or blog posts or podcasts, like if someone just never saw any of that and all they did was watch your webinar, they would still have all the information they needed in order to make a decision to buy your course from you. So that's just amazing. Okay, so if you don't have all three pieces of that framework I just showed you, then you're going to be missing out on more than half of your customers, right? Because if you don't have an evergreen funnel, then you won't have any way for hares to buy from you, because a hare will never wait 6 months for your next live launch. A hare is never going to wait for your next live launch. Absolutely not. They just won't. And the same thing with a turtle. If you don't have live launches, then you're basically telling the turtles, I just have no way for you to buy from me, and I'm not going to make you an offer that applies to you, right? So that's why we need to make sure that we have all the pieces. Okay, now you've seen the framework. You're familiar with the evergreen funnels, the live launches, and the webinars. Now, it's not just about thinking about these things individually. It's about how they come together. And that is what we call the waterfall effect, which is foundation number 4, the waterfall effect. Make sure you write this down. Now, like I said, the waterfall effect is how launching and evergreen funnels work together in an interconnected system to create results that are bigger than the sum of its parts. Okay, this is creating results. It's not just about saying, oh, I have a live launch and I have a funnel and they're just 2 separate things that I do in my business. No, it's about how they interact and how they feed into each other. When you see the waterfall effect, you're going to be like, oh, wow, like the more I can do, like the bigger it gets. It's like this huge snowball effect. So when you see how launching and evergreen funnels actually work together and feed each other in this holistic ecosystem, this is when a lot of people say to me like, oh, you made it all click. Like this is the thing that actually makes it all come together. Okay, so in our example of the waterfall effect, which I'll just preface this by saying, typically when I teach the waterfall effect, I am in person and I have a big vertical piece, like poster board that has the waterfall, literally looks like, you know, a big vertical flow of different diagrams. And I'm going to do my best to explain it in the slide format that we have. Okay, so we're going to start out with an example that you have a course that is $1,000. Your course might be less than that. It might be more than that. I'm just using this for easy math, okay? So the first part of the waterfall effect is your funnel. Now, let's imagine that your funnel is on and running for 6 months. And during the course of 6 months of people going through your funnel, you are going to have a combination of turtles and hares going through your evergreen funnel. Now, your evergreen funnel, like I said, it can be anywhere from, you know, it's a 5-day funnel most of the time, the way that we teach it. It's a 5-day funnel. So that means that people have the opportunity to purchase your course after opting in for your email list for 1 to 5 days. Some of them might buy in the first day, some of them might buy in the 5th day, but that's basically what this looks like. Now, let's say that this funnel is up and running for 6 months. And over the course of 6 months, you drive 5,000 leads, not all at once. Don't freak out. I don't mean all in one day. I mean over the course of 6 months, you drive leads into the funnel. Now, when you break that down, it only adds up to 200 per week or just 28 per day. Now, I know that with a little bit of work, and we're going to talk about it in a second, you can get to the point of driving 28 leads per day onto your email list, okay? So you don't have to start there, but that's what we're aiming for. And then you have a combination of turtles and hares going into your funnel. Now the hares, they buy during the funnel. So they buy right away during these 5 days, they make their purchase. And let's say that over the course of 6 months, you make 100 funnel sales. This is all based on standard conversion rates, a very conservative conversion rate of 2%, which is standard and conservative. So of course you have the potential to change that. So let's say you make 100 sales of your $1,000 course and it brings in $100,000 over the course of 6 months. This is 6 months of driving traffic of turtles and hares into your funnel. The hares are going to buy, and that adds up to about 17 sales per month, which you're going to need to remember because we're going to come back to that in our afternoon session for goal setting and planning. You're going to come back to that number. So remember this. But then what happens is the turtles don't buy in your funnel, right? The turtles do not buy. They end up going into what we call the warm turtle pond because they have been warmed up by the funnel. They've seen your offer, they're super interested, but they're just not ready to make a decision yet because they're turtles. So they go into the warm turtle pond where they become a very, very warm lead for your next launch. So in our example above, the funnel has been running for 6 months, and now it's time for you to launch your course. Time for you to live launch your course, you know, with a lot more hype and a lot more public promotion. So going into your next launch, your funnel has been on for 6 months. we have a whole pond full of warm turtles coming into your next launch. But we also have a couple of hares are coming in too, because any hare that finds you through the hype of your live launch or through the promotion of your live launch, they are going to purchase during your live launch too. So you have a combination of a bunch of turtles who've been through your funnel and didn't buy, plus the hares coming into your launch. What ends up happening is now we get a combination of turtles and hares buying during your live launch, because turtles love to buy during live launches. They've had plenty of time to think about this purchase. They've seen your offer come and go, and this is their second chance to buy from you. So you're going to have turtles that purchase, and you're going to have hares that purchase. And so let's say that during this live launch, you make another 100 sales of your $1,000 course. However, you're also going to have some super slow turtles. Like I said, there is a spectrum of the turtles and the hares. There can be really slow turtles in addition to normal turtles. So the super slow turtles, they don't buy during this launch. They stay in the warm pond. So these are the people who are going to say like, oh, I watched your product come and go 3 separate launches before I ended up buying, right? Or like, oh, I waited a year before I bought from you. That's the super slow turtle, okay? So they just stay in the warm turtle pond, but they've been warmed up again and again and again by the funnel and the live launch. Now, after that launch, you have another 6 months of the funnel running. So again, this is over the course of 6 months. I'm not saying this happens all in one day, but over the course of the next 6 months, which is typically we have our clients do 2 live launches a year. So typically you would have like 6 months in between each live launch. During that time, you're driving leads, driving traffic, both turtles and hares into your evergreen funnel. People are opting in, they're going through, the turtles are buying during the funnel, but the hares are buying during the funnel. So in the next 6 months, you bring in another 100 sales, which is about 17 per month. You're going to want to remember that. And then, but then there's more turtles who don't buy. And this warm turtle pond is getting bigger and bigger, right? So that by the time you go into launch number 2 of the year, right? This is like your funnel has been running all year. You're going into launch number 2. Maybe you launch in the fall or in the winter of this year. And then by this time, you have an even bigger turtle pond full of warm leads that are going into launch number 2. Plus you have all the hares that are going into launch number 2 as well, who are finding you through your launch promotion. So at this point, you've got over 9,600 warm funnel leads coming into launch number 2, plus any other list building you've done before the launch for hares that are coming in. And they all go through your live launch, your public promotion, and then you get another combination of turtles and hares who are buying during your launch number 2. And the reason that this number increases is because you are launching to a much bigger pool of warm turtles and hares combined, okay? So that's why your launches are getting bigger and bigger, and you can see that happening right here. Of course, there are still gonna be turtles who don't buy, and they just continue to hang out in that warm turtle pond until they're ready. And this process continues on and on, okay? So it just keeps going. Every 6 months, you have your funnel on, and then you go into your live launch. You have your funnel, you turtles and hares going through the funnel. Turtles are not buying, hares are buying. You're making sales from the hares, and then you do your live launch to re-engage and reconvert those turtles, okay? So this whole process is like a cyclical system that just keeps going on and on. And it works like magic. Like I said, it's not just 2 independent strategies. It's about how they feed into each other and how they work together. So if you did the math on what we just looked at, if you just did the math on those launches and funnels that we just looked at, if you put it all together, you'd have about $200,000 in evergreen funnel revenue. Your launches, those 2 launches, the first one was a $100,000 launch, and the second one was a $192,000 launch. And then you can always supplement your revenue. We're going to talk about this in a second, but you can always supplement your revenue with webinars as desired. Grand total, $500,000 a year. If your numbers are different, you might have a different number of leads, you might have a different course price, then you can absolutely do the math based on that. The main thing you have to understand is that the more people who go through your funnel, the bigger your launches are going to be. And we have seen in our own clients that 25% to 75% of their launch buyers come from their funnel leads who didn't buy during their funnel. People who did not buy in the funnel, they end up coming back and then a ton of them are buying during their launches, right? So that means the funnel not only converted the hares and brought in revenue every single day that way, but it also did its job by warming up the turtles to buy during your next live launch. The biggest mistake that people make is that they think that people who don't buy during their funnel just aren't buyers. They're not buyers. They are. They're just turtles. They're just turtles. So they're slower. Okay. So don't think, oh, if someone doesn't buy in my funnel, they're just never going to buy. Or if someone doesn't buy in my first launch, they're just never going to buy. They're just turtles. Okay. And then we can always supplement this stuff with additional ways of bringing in revenue. We're going to talk about this in just a second. So once you have the waterfall effect, once you have the waterfall effect in place, you have your evergreen funnel and your launches working together, right? Then there's other ways that you can go in and increase your revenue from there. So the first thing you can do is increase your traffic, right? One thing you could do is try to get more people into the funnel, more traffic. The other thing you can do is increase your conversion rates at each step of your funnel. And this creates a compounding effect. So imagine that we looked at your funnel or we looked at your live launch and we went in and we increased the conversion rate at each step. So we increase your conversion rate of your opt-in page. We increase the conversion rate of your webinar. We increase the conversion rate of your sales page. We increase the conversion rate of your checkout page. If you increase the conversion rate at every single step, it has this compounding effect where all of a sudden you're seeing multiples of a better result because you've increased the conversion rate at every single step. So there's that. The other thing you can do to increase your revenue at this point is to increase your price over time. So you might say, my course used to be $1,000, now it's $1,500, okay? And imagine doing all the math we just did, but doing it with $1,500 instead. One of the best things you can do to increase your revenue from this point is to build out a product suite of upsells, downsells, back-end offers, and that is foundation number 5. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the product pyramid, which is what we call your product suite because it looks like a pyramid. Okay, so number 5 is the product pyramid, and this product suite, building out your product suite, adding in upsells, downsells, cross sells and back-end offers and all those things. This is one of the best ways to grow your course business is having this strategic, intentional product suite. Okay, it has to be intentional. It has to be strategic. This is the reason why I tell people you can't just have 4 courses that each cost $200. No, it has to have a structure. And so what that structure is I'm sure this is not necessarily groundbreaking, but you can't just have a million different courses and say, oh, but I have a product suite because I have 5 different courses and they all cost $200 and no one knows what course to do first, next, or last. And so when there's no structure and there's no path or roadmap for people to follow, that's not a product suite. A product suite is very intentional and strategic, okay? So the way that this needs to work is that there's an introductory offer level, there's a mid-tier level, which is slightly more expensive, and then there's a higher tier level, and that is the most expensive. So you have 3 different offers at 3 increasingly larger price points, okay? Now, there's 2 ways we can do this as course creators. There's 2 ways we can approach this. The first approach, and whichever way you do this is just going to depend on your content and also just your personal preference. So the first way we can do this is say, my least expensive course is my introductory course. It's my beginner content, right? It has content for beginners and therefore the price point is for beginners. Then you can say, I have an intermediate course. It has more advanced content and it has a price point to match. So it's a little bit more expensive. Then you can say, I'm going to have an advanced course that has completely different content than the other 2 courses. It's my most advanced content, and that's going to cost the most in my product suite. So you might say the first course is $500, the second course is $1,000, the third course is $2,000, right? That's one way you can approach this. The other way you can approach this as a course creator is saying, look, I just want to have one core course curriculum. You just have one course curriculum. And the difference between your tiers of pricing is in the additional support that your clients get. Okay, so you have a self-study course here, And then for the next level and the next level of investment, they can get a coaching program where they have more support from you. And then at the very top, your most expensive offering can be either a mastermind or it could be like a one-on-one service or something like that. But it's basically saying this is all the same content. The difference in the different price points and the levels is the support that they get from you, versus the alternative here is saying every single course has different content depending on depending on the person. Okay, now in terms of how can people get access to these things, how do people, what we call it moving through your product suite. How do people move through your product suite? Well, there's two ways. One, it can happen immediately and instantly as a one-click upsell. So in that example, it would be the equivalent of saying, I purchased the intro course, and as a one-click upsell, immediately within the same 5 minutes, I purchased your intermediate course because I knew that I was going to want it anyway. So that way we can have, it happens instantly. Or people buy your course number 2 and then they instantly want to upgrade into course number 3 as a one-click upsell. Easy peasy. The other way that this happens is over time. Let's say that someone buys your self-study course and then they move up into your coaching program a year later, and then they move up into your mastermind a year after that. When it happens over a long period of time, that's what we call an ascension model, which is more of a model of people moving through it slowly as they advance. The alternative is, of course, having this one-click upsell that happens instantly. So having a product suite where you have multiple offers at different price points is one of the best ways to double your business without needing to double the traffic or double the amount of leads that you're getting, because you can actually have the same customers who bought your first course, they can buy your second and third course as well.